What if Dylan's mystery caller is not an enemy, but someone from her past tied to a secret that could change everything? The phone call is frightening enough, but the real shock may be what it reveals about Dylan and Remy. If this is more than a scare tactic, then a buried connection may be about to come to light in a big way. At first glance, Dylan's alarming phone call sounds like the beginning of a classic danger story. A distorted voice, unfinished business, a possible meeting location. On paper, that feels threatening. It feels like the show wants viewers to brace for something dark, unstable, and possibly dangerous. And with Remy's history, that reaction makes perfect sense. This is not a character with a clean past. Remy has already crossed disturbing lines before. He has stalked Elektra. He has manipulated situations. He has used technology in humiliating ways. So when a mystery call enters the picture, the immediate instinct is to assume the worst. But that may be exactly where the show wants the audience to look, so it can pull the rug out from under us. Because the bigger twist may not be that Dylan is in danger. The bigger twist may be that Dylan and Remy share a past so unexpected, so emotionally loaded, that the fear of the moment is only masking a much deeper reveal. That is what makes this setup interesting. The tension may begin like a thriller, but it could evolve into something more layered, a family reveal, a hidden childhood bond, or an old wound that was never truly buried. And if that is the case, then the voice changer is not just there to scare Dylan. It is there to delay recognition, to build suspense, to make the eventual face-to-face reveal hit harder. So yes, the call may sound sinister. But emotionally, this may be less about immediate danger and more about identity, memory, and a connection Dylan never expected to confront again. If Remy is behind this, then the most important question is not whether he wants to scare Dylan. It is why, and that motive changes everything. If this were truly just another sinister scheme, the story would likely lean harder into threat. Instead, there is something oddly theatrical about this setup. The disguised voice, the vague reference to unfinished business, the possibility of a secret meeting. It feels almost like a staged emotional ambush rather than a straightforward attack. That opens the door to a very different interpretation. Remy may be testing Dylan before revealing himself. Maybe he wants to see whether she remembers him. Maybe he wants to see whether old loyalty still exists. Or maybe he wants to force a confrontation with a history he believes she has forgotten, or worse, chosen to bury. That is where the story becomes much more compelling. Because if Remy and Dylan do have a family connection, then his behavior takes on a more personal meaning. It becomes messy. It becomes psychological. It becomes less about random intimidation and more about resentment, abandonment, or unresolved history. And let's be honest, in a soap, the most explosive secrets are rarely the ones between strangers. They are the ones between people whose lives were quietly tied together long before the audience knew it. If Dylan truly has no family nearby, that detail may not be accidental. It may be a narrative gap the writers are now preparing to fill. And Remy could be the person who fills it in the most unsettling way possible. Not with warmth, not with comfort, but with questions. Why now? Why this method? And what kind of past makes a reunion begin with fear instead of relief? That is where the storyline gets its hook. This is the theory that could turn a strange phone call into one of the week's biggest revelations. If Dylan and Remy are related, suddenly everything changes. A half-brother, a stepbrother, a cousin who grew up more like a sibling. Any of those options would instantly give this storyline emotional weight. It would also explain why the show is teasing mystery instead of simply dropping Remy into Dylan's orbit in a normal way. Because a normal reunion would not create this kind of suspense. But a reunion tangled up in secrets, confusion, and old emotional scars? That is classic soap territory. And it also helps solve a bigger structural issue. Dylan needs stronger roots in this world. Right now, she risks feeling isolated. A hidden bond with Remy would immediately give her more personal stakes, more conflict, and more purpose within the canvas. But this is where things could turn darker in an emotional sense. Because being related to someone like Remy is not a sweet twist. It is a burden. If Dylan discovers that someone tied to her by blood or family history is the same unstable figure who terrorized Electra, that creates instant internal conflict. She may feel sympathy. If Dylan reconnects with Remy, her role may not stop at emotional fallout. She could become useful to him. That is where this storyline may start spreading into the wider canvas. There is already speculation that Dylan could help Remy reconnect with Dickie Sharp. If that happens, then this secret past is not just a personal reveal. It becomes a plot engine. It gives Remy access. It gives him leverage. It gives him a path back into storylines where he might otherwise remain on the outside. And that is what makes Dylan's position so risky. Because even if she starts from a place of compassion, she may underestimate the cost of opening that door. Remy is not simply awkward or misunderstood. He is volatile. He is capable of obsession. He is capable of manipulation. So if Dylan becomes the person who vouches for him, she may unintentionally help reintroduce chaos into multiple relationships. At the same time, the show may complicate this further by tying Will into the equation. If Remy tries to help Dylan keep a romantic path open with Will, then his involvement becomes even more intrusive. That would mean he is not just reconnecting with Dylan emotionally. He is trying to shape her future. And in soap language, that usually means control is creeping in under the disguise of support. That is the danger here. A person from the past returns. Old memories stir. Trust begins to rebuild. And before Dylan realizes it, Remy may already be influencing her choices, her relationships, and her place in other people's lives. That is how these stories escalate. Not all at once, but one emotional step at a time. The biggest reveal may still be ahead. Yes, finding out Dylan and Remy are connected would be huge. But the more powerful twist may be what their history actually contains. Because the show is not teasing a simple reunion. It is teasing unfinished business. That phrase matters. Unfinished business suggests something unresolved. Something painful. Something that did not end cleanly. Maybe Dylan left someone behind. Maybe Remy felt abandoned. Maybe there was a family secret, a betrayal, or a childhood fracture that shaped them both in completely different ways. And if that is true, then Dylan's fear during the phone call becomes even more important. Maybe part of her already knows. Maybe the voice is disguised, but the emotional energy is familiar. Maybe something in the tension of that moment reaches her before logic does. That would make her reaction more than panic. It would make it recognition without certainty. And that kind of storytelling works because it creates two mysteries at once. The first mystery is obvious. Who is behind the call? But the deeper mystery is the one that keeps viewers hooked. What happened between Dylan and Remy that made this return feel so disturbing from the start? That is the question with real staying power. Because once the reveal lands, the audience will not just want answers about Remy's identity. They will want answers about Dylan's silence, her past, and whether she has been carrying a secret of her own this entire time. So this may not be just a strange prank or a brief scare designed to rattle Dylan. It may be the first crack in a much deeper story, one tied to history, identity, and a connection that could carry far more emotional weight than anyone expected. If Remy is truly linked to Dylan's past, then this twist has the power to change how we see both of them. Suddenly, the fear in that phone call means more. The mystery becomes more personal. And the real drama may begin only after the truth comes out. Because in a story like this, the reveal is never the end of the shock. It is the start of the fallout. So is Remy about to become part of Dylan's world in a completely new way? And if they really do share a hidden bond, will that reunion open the door to healing, or unleash even more chaos? Let me know what you think in the comments. And for more the bold and the beautiful spoilers, theories, and deep drama breakdowns, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This secret already feels dangerous, and the next reveal could make it even bigger.